So you think your state has the best food in America?
Bratwurst, capital of Wisconsin.
I am the mayor.
We're sending a true American Idol to find out.
Who's hungry?
Taylor Hicks comes to INSP in a tasty new original series.
Never done that before. If it's not all over you, you're not having fun.
He's hitting every state to find the foods that make them great.
So you're telling me that the chimichanga comes from a cuss word?
Yes.
Chimichanga.
From the mouth-watering state favorites you know,
Who wants a Chicago dog? The Wisconsin cheese curd? Fry bread in Arizona. It's killer.
to some delectable hidden gems.
Probably never heard of chicken booyah.
You like it?
No, like it, I love it.
Yes.
We're serving up a heaping helping of America.
USA. This is what I was born to do.
Oh, you stole another one.
The delicious new original series, State Plate. Series premiere October 21st, only on INSP.
I think we have a winner.
Thank you so much for being here.
New York.
Yeah, New York.
New York.
Well, I saw you backstage with your harmonica, so we should start off this interview.
You don't hear that in New York a lot,
Just
do you?
casual. I love it. What a great way to start this off, right?
Right on.
Well, I never knew you were such a foodie. So tell me about this show and what got you interested in doing it.
Well, being from Alabama, you're a big foodie.
Yeah.
If you're from Alabama, you know food was around me all my life, and it's just kind of a natural progression of being a foodie from Alabama, learning a lot about really being in the Alabama is called the heart of Dixie, and when you're in the heart of Dixie, there are so many different styles of foods that you're exposed to. So obviously playing in clubs and restaurants all my life, I grew up around a lot of food, and so this is kind of a natural progression of playing music. And I've always loved, traveling and performing, but now this is, food and travel, and that's something that I'm really excited about because I think the concept of this show is great. I mean, I've always wondered, like, what's an iconic food from the state of Washington? What's an iconic food from Nebraska? So this is kind of truly a, like, farm-to-table show where we go into each state and we talk about iconic foods from that state.
And how do you uncover these places that you visit in the States?
Well, a lot of research. I think it's kind of, somebody asked me what I was doing last week, and I was like, well, I was milking a cow, And we really, truly go to a state like Wisconsin, and we go to the dairy farm. We talk about cheese curds. When we're in Maine, we go lobstering in Maine. And when you're talking about these state foods, it really is a heartland story for all of some of these. Some of these families are generational families that have been doing this all their lives, and it's truly a heartland story.
So where have you been so far, and what have you eaten? Because I need to know everything. I am a big foodie myself, so I'm just going to sit here and be like, eat some cheese in Wisconsin.
We've gone to California, artichokes, avocados. We go to a lot of farms. The origin of some of these foods are really cool. If you've never had Rocky Mountain oysters before, Google it. It's really interesting. That's pretty funny stuff. But we've got a plate of food that we have to fill up with foods that are indigenous to that state. So we decide what goes on the plate, and we decide what will be left off the plate. But I was in Nebraska, and we did a segment, obviously, on corn. And we were actually at a sweet corn field. And so we went through the field, and you can actually eat corn right off the cob in the cornfield. So it was like those things are really amazing because it makes me think if I ever was in Nebraska by myself, I'd just kind of hang out and just run in the middle of the field and eat a bunch of corn. I ate like 10 ears of corn that day. But those kinds of things, like when you're talking about Maine, you're talking about lobster and blueberries and some of these things that I would never think were iconic to these states, you can find on State Plate.
So on the show, you find the ingredients and then you go back to a kitchen and actually create a meal?
Some of them we do, yeah. I mean, if it's something as simple as corn on the cob, we usually just throw some butter on it, talk about it, and eat it, But some of the dishes, some of the desserts are like a kolache, which is, a dessert in Nebraska, a Czechoslovakian dessert that's really famous in Nebraska. And it's, those kinds of things make up this country as far as culinary arts go. And I had a blast doing it, and I gained a little weight, too.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
So what's usually your favorite type of food? Are you a barbecue? I'm assuming you're a barbecue kind of guy. Because you have a restaurant, right? A barbecue restaurant.
I do have a restaurant. I got into the restaurant business probably about 6 years ago, Saul's Juke Joint. And if you've never been to a juke joint in the South, you should go because there's a lot of music, there's a lot of barbecue, there's a lot of good food. I can't say that I don't like anything other than Rocky Mountain oysters. So you need to Google Rocky Mountain oysters.
Wait, you're gonna have to just describe these Rocky Mountain oysters for us.
No. I'm gonna let you figure out what. Well, I'll just tell you that it's a part of a bull.
Oh.
You get my drift?
Yeah.
But it's, those things that, we do on State Plate. We go to all of these different states and we find foods that either should go on the plate or it should go off the plate. So, and I think that's cool because it's kind of like Dirty Jobs by Mike Rowe meets Diners, Drives, and Dine-Ins. So it's kind of a cross-pollination of both of those show concepts because I'm getting dirty in the field and then we're taking it to the kitchen.
What are some of the food shows that you like to watch that kind of inspired you?
I like Diners, Drives, and Dine-Ins. That's kind of, a staple. I feel like I'm kind of on the same food tour that he is, as much as I travel and perform. We're all, out in search of, like, the greatest cheeseburger in America. The greatest, meat and three or soul food place in each town. And the State Plate is kind of a culmination of both of those because we are going to, places like, there's Schweiss Deli in Wisconsin where, home of the best bratwurst, and so we are going into establishments all across the country and finding those iconic foods that represent each state.
Yeah. So tell us about the premiere episode. Where are you going to be, and what are you going to eat?
I'm going to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Wisconsin. And what was great about Wisconsin is that, it was a beautiful time of year. I mean, we were, the summers up there are beautiful. They're a little bit cooler, kind of a little bit like here. This even though it gets hot, it's still not the South where I'm from. We talk about bratwurst. Obviously I'm milking a cow, which is kind of weird. This kind of a weird feeling when you're milking a cow. But what's great about, Saxon Creamery where we went was, they do cheese curds, and I've never had a cheese curd. And cheese curds only last a certain amount of hours. So you have to have them fresh. And, if you have a fresh cheese curd, they squeak in your mouth. So you can only tell, like, everybody's walking around. They got this crazy squeaking sound because of fresh cheese curds. So, there's so many different things that can go on the plate, but can go off the plate. One of them that went on the plate was chicken booyah, which is kind of a chicken soup concoction that's only indigenous to northern Wisconsin, the Green Bay area. And another thing too is that they use booyah for they do it for they make it and they do it for a lot of homeless people there in their towns. And that's the kind of stories about these particular foods that just make it what America is as far as foods in America. And that's what I love about it because it's truly educational.
Yeah. What was the best thing you ate on your journey through all these states?
Not Rocky Mountain oysters. Yeah. The best thing that I ate, I love desserts. And I can't think of any other dessert that I've found other than that kolache. It's called a kolache. I think it's a kolache. It's a Czechoslovakian dessert. And it is like a cross between everything that you can imagine. It's like a a warm cheese Danish, a strudel. It is the most gooeyest, sweetest, most wonderful thing on the planet. And I actually stopped the whole show while we were filming because she took the strawberry kolache out of the oven. And I was like, oh, hold up. I was like, we've got to stop this right now. And so we stopped the whole show, and we went over, and she actually cut fresh pastry, the pastry, Czechoslovakian pastry, and that was my favorite dessert. Now, my favorite entree, lobster. Had to be lobster from Maine. I mean, when you can go on a boat and literally take a lobster and then steam it and eat it within 10 minutes, that was like the most decadent, food that I've ever eaten. So those kinds of things make up State Plate, and I think it's cool because it's truly about the states of America, and I'm kind of ribbing hopefully for the next season, and we go to Hawaii, I mean, but that's. I've always wondered what, like we've heard about foods from Hawaii, but truly indigenous foods from all of these states make up, this great food culture in America.
How do you eat your lobster? Do you like it with butter or mayo?
Mayo.
Yeah, I like it with butter. How about everybody else?
I've never heard lobster with mayo.
Yeah, like a lobster roll.
Ah,
yeah.
No, lobster rolls. I thought you were talking about like actually, well, I can get it. Butter, salt, and that's it.
And corn.
And corn, yeah, in the field, in Nebraska.
Yeah. So how long were you out on the road traveling to these states?
The show started taping in the end of May, and it went through up until about 2 weeks ago.
Ooh, lots of food.
So not only are we doing 9 episodes, we actually decided that we were going to do three more. So there's actually 3 more episodes now, and I can, AOL Bill will be the first to hear it, that we're doing an extra 3 episodes of State Plate. How about it?
Yeah. And where are those states that you visited?
We went to Colorado, Nebraska. We went to Texas. Texas was fun. I mean, I'd never ridden a horse before. Now, this is interesting because some of these places and some of these farms, to get to some of this food, you got to ride a horse. So I'm a little bit. It's kind of an interesting thing. I'm a little bit skittish about horses, and like horses are a little skittish about me. So there's some interesting footage there about me, being able to get on a horse. But that's what's great about this show is that, we truly, authentically get on a horse and we actually go to where this origin of this food is.
Yeah. So of course you're a foodie, but you're also an incredible singer. And so when you went to these states, did you perform?
What's interesting is that some of the families that really make up this country's agriculture and the iconic agriculture of this country, 9 times out of 10, the families were musical. So, I mean, I've jammed with some of the family and while they pass the time, there's a family that I was with in Arizona that one of them played the congas. And so we ended up jamming on the congas. And then, when I was in Prague, Nebraska, believe it or not, there's a Prague, Nebraska. I actually got out the accordion and we played some Czechoslovakian music with the band. So there's a little bit of a musical element that goes along with some of these families and obviously me too.
It's been 10 years since you
Don't say
won
that.
American Idol. Can you believe it, guys? I remember when you won. What's it been like for you to look back and think about that time and how far you've come?
It's the greatest platform in the world to come off of if you really, truly, as a kid, dreamed of being a performer. I knew at a very early age that I wanted to be in entertainment, and I wanted to be a performer and a singer. And the timing for my generation and a lot of our generation was to be able to have shows like that, to be able to possibly get on and possibly win and have a career. And that's exactly what happened with me. I couldn't believe that I was able to get on a show like that, not only during that time period when it was so big. To be able to win a show like that is something that, Idol, it's funny is that my dad told me not too long ago, is like, I learned how to text message voting for you, and it kind of put things into perspective with me as far as shows like that. And especially American Idol. American Idol actually taught people how to text message. I mean, that was the first show that was truly an integration of being able to sit at home and vote for your personal favorite singer or contestant. So that show has that much of a mark on our culture, and it definitely had a mark on me.
Yeah. How did you feel when you found out that Idol was ending?
It was endearing. I'm really, really happy the way the way that they embraced the whole show. I mean, when you look back on it, Seinfeld only had 10 years. Idol had 15. And the way that they embraced the show at the end, everybody that talks to me and then I see people all over the country, they're just like, wow, I loved it. It was such an endearing show. And, we all understand that, television, doesn't last forever, and that's something that to be able to say that you were on a show, an iconic show like that, it's truly a blessing.
Do you guys have like Idol meetups? I want to know if all the American Idols like go out to brunch or something.
We do keep in touch with each other. I've got actually on my phone, like there's this big group text message that's got like 20 people on it, but we only use it every now and then because each of us get mad because we're always doing something that there's this big group text message going on. But yeah, we do talk to each other. I mean, on the show, it's you always you want to win. But then when you get off the show and then you go through your careers, you really want to see the contestants do well that you were on the show with. I mean, you basically, had success and fame to a certain degree. And that's something that, I'm always interested in how people on my season are doing and obviously other seasons. But, we keep in touch with each other. Somebody called me, I'm not going to say who, but somebody called me and was like, hey, my friend, wants you to play at their birthday party. And so, like, we actually, like, get each other gigs, I mean, and so there is kind of a sense of family there.
Yeah. What's going on with you music-wise? I know you had, you had that Las Vegas residency, which is awesome. I think, weren't you one of the first Idols to do that, or if not, the only one?
Yeah, Vegas was fun. Ooh. 2 years, of like, I feel like that I lived Hangover 3 like for 2 years, but I had a blast. Vegas was cool. I'll definitely go back, when the time's right. I'll being an entertainer there, and there's so many wonderful people that really, make up that town and all of the entertainers. And to be honest, it's kind of cool to go back to Vegas now and play, whereas like maybe 15 years ago it wasn't. Yeah. Having a residency there was great, and I'll definitely go back. You
got Britney Spears there now, J-Lo, Celine's back. Why not go back to Vegas?
It's funny. It's like when I was when like the first 2 months I was in Vegas was like, we went to clubs all the time. Like we were just clubbing, we were having fun, and then we were doing this and doing that. And then all of a sudden, like one of my family members was like, "We're coming to see Celine," and I was like, "Oh, party's over. Family's coming to Celine. Get it together. But that's I loved it. That was such a great gig. But I'm actually in the studio right now recording for a new record that's going to release in 2017, the spring of 2017. I haven't really released a lot of music in the last few years. It's fun because I know now that I've got the material to release music. when you have the songs, it's funny. 90% of recording an album is content. I mean, the recording part's fun, but 90% of it's songs. I mean, you gotta have the right songs and know that they're right for you emotionally, lyrically, and musically to be able to connect with your audience. And 10% of it's recording. But 90% of it's content and art.
Yeah, what kind of inspires you to write a song? Do you go? Are there like lulls in your songwriting process where you're just kind of not feeling inspired?
Yes. A lot of it has to do with where I'm at from a headspace. If I'm out on the road, like, doing State Plate or doing shows and stuff, like, I'll try to keep, like, the antenna up for different concepts. I read a lot of newspapers. Believe it or not, song titles and material can, come from New York Post titles almost, And so I always kind of like keep an ear and an eye out for newspaper titles. But most of all, it's, when I go somewhere to get away to write, having traveling to Nashville and writing, that's something that I get in the headspace. You really just got to get in the headspace for. Or you got to go through a divorce or a breakup.
Breakups always work, huh?
Yes.
Or you should take that trip to Hawaii. I'm sure you'll get inspired there.
Or break up and then go to Hawaii,
And then meet a woman in Hawaii.
Yeah, you never know.
And that will be an awesome blues album, right? A Hawaiian twang to your blues album.
That's interesting. I've never thought about, Hawaiian music integrated with blues music, That's an interesting concept.
Hey, I'll help you out with your album.
I don't know if ukulele's been on any blues albums recently.
That'd be kind of cool, though.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you think? Can you play us on your harmonica? Like, what do you think a Hawaiian blues tune would sound? Man, I just need a pina colada and I'm set. I do want to get to some audience questions, so if you guys have questions for Taylor.
Hi, nice to meet you.
How you doing?
So I was wondering what kind of food were you eating when you were on American Idol? And
salads?
Also, has your eating habits changed since you started the show?
Interestingly enough, we all used to go to Fogo de Chao. But here's the first thing, like I had never, being from Alabama, I mean, there's not too many, I mean, I don't even know if there's one Brazilian steak restaurant. So what's funny though is that like, there's a green and red like card that you get, and green means they keep piling it on, and red means you need to stop. Well, I never knew that there was a red side. So I was like, we would always laugh because, we would go to steak places, but we didn't really have much time when I was on, when we were all on the show. But a lot of production food. We would, Elliot and I would sneak away to Lakers games at night, and without anybody knowing, which was always fun. And we would just, pig out and, it's tough, when you're on a show like that. I mean, we were literally working like 18, 19-hour days. I mean, we would get up and a lot of the show is promotional, like we would go do a lot of promotion. It was a very small time in the show where you actually rehearsed. So the way that you win Idol is that you rehearse in your head while you go through the day. And to answer your question, we used to, a lot of steak places, it's, we went to, what is that, Buca di Beppo? What's that Italian restaurant? So all the send-off parties would be an Italian restaurant. So all of us, that were on the show with me, we all came from good old America. So we loved everything,
Do you guys live in a hotel or in a house?
We went from a hotel to a house to a big apartment. So I mean, it got to be like Melrose Place a little bit,
That's what I really want to see.
Yeah.
What happened in the Idol house?
Lord have mercy.
It's like Big Brother.
Yeah, Big Brother meets Melrose Place.
Who's next?
Hi, Taylor. Thank you for being here. So if you had a co-host to host your show in terms of culinary artists, which one would it be?
Ooh, a co-host. Yeah. You want to do it? You know, I like Anthony Bourdain. He's just a cool hip. He's one of my favorite hosts. He's a really cool hip. He just has a thing about him that I like, and I think some of his international culinary culture could be integrated in this too, because I wouldn't mind doing like a country plate, with him as opposed to a state plate. So I would have to say Anthony would be a good one.
That'd be awesome. I think we have time for one more. Right here.
Hey Taylor, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Kind of hopping off that question, is there someone from American Idol, like maybe from your cycle, that you want to travel on the show with?
Before I get into trouble here, I think Kelly Pickler would be a great co-host. She would kind of be fun, and especially if we're going into like the heartland of America. I really wouldn't have to do much. I mean, she could just, hey y'all, it's just, hey, and I could just be in the back, just kind of getting the food together. But she would be great for State Plate.
That'd be fun. Is there another Idol winner that you would like to take along on State Plate?
I
guess you don't really. Do you get to meet the fellow winners?
Yeah, we keep
the winner's circle.
The winner's circle. We keep a lot. Yeah, I see over the years, all the winners have kind of, had performances together and stuff like that. I would I don't know. That's a good question. I don't want to get in trouble with all of them. So I'm going to plead the fifth on that.
What a good guy. Well, we can't wait to watch State Plate. I hope you guys all watch it. And thank you so much for being here, Taylor.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the very good.